You have a lower dollar, you have lots of inflation, and now pegging gold deliverable on it gives you lower borrowing costs. And if you start with the 50-year version of it, you have a lot of runway to let the price of gold go way higher between now and 50 years. She said that they would do shorter duration over time, but think about it. What other way in a world where we have zero fiscal responsibility? We talked about how Doge came in last week and they want to raise the ceiling to 5 trillion and they could only agree on 80 billion of cuts, which is 38 hours of trading by the US, or spending by the US government. It's nothing, not the 2 trillion we were promised. How can we continue to find any demand for our treasuries at any semblance of low interest rates where they are right now? There will always be demand for treasuries, but at what price? At what interest rate? So instead of letting interest rates go high enough to find that demand, how about you bring back all the gold through these massive imports, month over month over month over month? We become a net importer, largest deliveries in the history of the COMEX ever, month over month. Who's buying it? What is more important than the dollar is the Treasury. The Treasury is far more important than the dollar. The Treasury is what finances our spending and our indebtedness. So if the world knows that we are going to continue to inflate the dollar away, holding the dollar is crazy. But how do we get them to hold the Treasury without, or purchase the Treasury without letting rates go parabolic to compensate for that inflation? See, if you're going to buy the Treasury in an inflated currency, you demand a higher rate. Well, what if you offer gold that is deliverable upon maturity, which takes the place of the interest rate? In other words, this is how you dramatically lower your borrowing costs, because gold, which has doubled the performance of the 10-year Treasury, look at this year, it's up 38% and the dollar's down 10%. So if you had bought a 10-year Treasury at 4.5%, you're up 2.25% so far this year, but the dollar's down 10. Gold's up almost 40. Look at last year, gold was up 40, the 10-year Treasury was up 4. So in other words, gold represents the inflation hedge. Gold would represent the interest on the bond. That's why Judy can say maybe even a zero coupon bond redeemable in gold upon maturity. This is why they were, if in my mind, they're reshoring the gold. This is why George Gammon is talking about the potential of gold being revalued just the way that we did. It is in the Treasury manual. He showed it that they can do it. We've said that. All they need to do is make it so. They just need to do it, and doesn't even need congressional approval, and it's done. And the Treasury then issues gold certificates to the Federal Reserve. It doesn't give them a call on the physical gold. It gives them a call on the fiat value of it. So in other words, the Fed holds the gold on behalf of the Treasury. They print money created out of thin air, give it to the Treasury. The Treasury gives them the certificates. They own the money for it. But now the act of doing that creates inflation and devalues the dollar. That's exactly what Trump would want in order to mitigate the debt by having a lower dollar and lots of inflation. It's a gimmick. It's an accounting gimmick. But
this isn't theoretical. It's rooted in precedent. The U.S. Treasury could issue gold certificates to the Federal Reserve, backed by the value of gold, not the physical metal. The Fed would print dollars, the Treasury would receive the funds, and the certificates act as collateral. This move inflates the money supply, devaluing the dollar, but enables continued deficit spending at low costs. Inflation becomes a tool rather than a threat. Long-term gold-backed treasuries, even 50-year versions, could give the government runway to restructure its balance sheet without triggering a default or market collapse.
You have a lower dollar, you have lots of inflation, and now pegging gold deliverable on it gives you lower borrowing costs. And if you start with the 50-year version of it, you have a lot of runway to let the price of gold go way higher between now and 50 years. She said that they would do shorter duration over time, but think about it. What other way in a world where we have zero fiscal responsibility? We talked about how Doge came in last week and they want to raise the ceiling to 5 trillion and they could only agree on 80 billion of cuts, which is 38 hours of trading by the US, or spending by the US government. It's nothing, not the 2 trillion we were promised. How can we continue to find any demand for our treasuries at any semblance of low interest rates where they are right now? There will always be demand for treasuries, but at what price? At what interest rate? So instead of letting interest rates go high enough to find that demand, how about you bring back all the gold through these massive imports, month over month over month over month? We become a net importer, largest deliveries in the history of the COMEX ever, month over month. Who's buying it? Well, what if we're reshoring it? We're going to let it rise. What if we even revalue it and peg it to a treasury and make it redeemable? Now you can offer treasuries with very, very, very low borrowing costs to continue to finance the game. And then hopefully through reshoring all your manufacturing, this gives us the ability to maybe grow our way out of this mess, because as it is right now, we can't. So either way, we need to cross that Rubicon. We need to go through that pain, but by keeping our borrowing costs low and inflating and lowering the value of the dollar by pushing gold up, in essence, you're mitigating the pain of paying off that debt. At the same time, you're lowering the costs associated with doing it. And the downside's got to give up some gold. But if you do long enough duration, maybe by the time gold gets high enough, it's much less than we need to. I can't think of any other way they pull this off without outright default or blowing the whole system up. So could they be revaluing gold? I think so. Could they be reshoring it, like Judy says, to peg to a treasury? I think so. Only time will tell. But then again, we are on the cusp of a new monetary system. That I do believe. Lots of crazy things. And then you put it in the context of perhaps the manipulation really starting to wane or come to an end because of these threats of delivery and low volume of deliverable bars at that level. I don't know. I just have a feeling that the Chinese curse of may you live in interesting times is going to come true. These are very interesting and seem to be getting more so by the day, my man.
Why has the U.S. become a massive net importer of gold in recent years? COMEX reports show record deliveries month after month. Someone is buying, and it may be the government. Reshoring gold could lay the groundwork for a strategic revaluation. By boosting gold's price and pegging treasuries to it, the U.S. could issue ultra-low-interest debt while masking inflation's true impact. This stealth move might explain renewed chatter from experts like Judy Shelton and George Gammon, who believe a monetary system reset is brewing, one where gold reclaims a central role.
As far as his tariffs, you have to wonder, is he doing this? Like, I mean, look, before I comment on it, I would say that what we are seeing is it's almost too hard to make up. You have to start to wonder, are the things that are being done, are they being done to specifically drive away our friends by undermining the economy and the dollar with deficits, debt, inflation, fake money, drive away our friends with arbitrary and unreasonable demands and tariff threats, while financial authorities are distorting money data. And that's what we've talked about, the CP lie. And so it covers up systemic issues in the system. So let's keep that in mind. But why would they be doing this? Are they trying to reset the system? And it really almost makes me think like they are. You know, Vance has talked about having the world reserve currency is not a benefit any longer to our country when we're so far down the indebtedness rabbit hole. But when you look at a threat of 50% tariffs on copper, 200% levies on pharmaceuticals, 35% tariff against Canada.
At the same time, the U.S. is threatening over 20 nations with aggressive tariffs, some as high as 50%. These include allies like Canada, Japan, and EU members. This approach seems irrational unless it's part of a deliberate plan. The Triffin dilemma states that a reserve currency nation must run trade deficits, which weakens domestic manufacturing. But what if these tariffs are meant to force decoupling from the dollar? Could the U.S. be weaponizing trade to intentionally provoke global de-dollarization, setting the stage for a new gold-pegged financial system?
I mean, there's 20 countries now that face measures beginning August 1st unless they accept the terms dictated by Trump. And let me just read them here. The European Union, 30%, South Africa, 30%, South Korea, 25%, Bangladesh, 35%, Kazakhstan, 25%, Philippines, 20%, Cambodia, 36%, Indonesia, 32%, Myanmar, 40%, Sri Lanka, 30%, Malaysia, 25%, Thailand, 36%, Moldova, 25%, Canada, 35%, Mexico, 30%, Bosnia, 30%, Algeria, 30%, Tunisia 25, Brunei 25, Serbia 35, Japan 25. I mean, at what point does the world, Brazil 50, Libya 30, Laos 40, Iraq 30. On every single one of these countries, he's putting massive tariffs. But remember, what does Triffin's dilemma say? You will always run trade imbalances when you are the world reserve currency, always, because we cannot provide enough in the way of dollars to the rest of the world just through trade. So you have to export your dollar, which means your dollar is strong, the other currencies are weak, which means their manufacturing is way more competitive. So we send our manufacturing over there to save all this money and make our prices more competitive. By being the world reserve currency, we've had low prices, we've had low interest rates, and high asset prices.
Is this all part of a broader strategy to reset the global financial order? Some believe this chaos is intentional. With uncontrollable deficits, rising inflation, and waning global trust, the dollar's dominance is under fire. By pairing gold with Treasury debt and applying pressure through trade and currency manipulation, the U.S. may be laying the groundwork for a post-dollar era. Gold and silver accumulation by the world's biggest investors hints that they see the shift coming. The system appears too stupid to be stupid. Could it be by design? Only time will tell.
Low prices on goods, that is, because we send our manufacturing over there. So this imbalance that he's striking back against is a result of having the privilege of being the world reserve currency. You don't think he knows that? Vice President Vance knows that. He's talked about it, written about it on letterhead from the White House about Triffin's dilemma. So is he trying to do this? Is he trying to piss off the world so much, let me just be blunt, that they say, screw it, I'm done? And this is that moment where the reset happens. I mean, there's so much to think about, but this is not the way that I would be trying to, fix the problem by continually threatening our allies, in many cases our allies like Japan and like Canada and like Mexico and all of these other countries with massive tariffs when we are the world reserve currency and we expect them to use the dollar. We threaten them if they don't, and we expect them to put their reserves in treasuries. So we're inflating the dollar away. We can't get our fiscal house in order. We're spending more money. Let's raise the debt ceiling again. DOGE cites $2 trillion in savings. We agree on $80 billion. We're never going to get it in order. So we're going to continually run these trade deficits. And at the same time, we're trying to now throw tariffs on the countries that we expect to take the dollar and then reinvest their proceeds in treasuries after we've already weaponized it. The whole thing is stupid as a mud wall. And it makes you wonder, is he doing this purposely? And as David Bateman said, this is all done purposely. I didn't remember reading that part when I read it, but it makes sense to me. They are doing this stuff purposely. What's the end game? I guess only time will tell. But these are the reasons you're seeing the biggest money in the world accumulate gold and silver done again, because they see it. They know it. They know what's going on. And we have to look at all the crumbs and try and put it together. And, maybe I'm stupid enough to say it out loud, but that's what I feel. It's like, okay, it was overtly too stupid to be stupid last administration. This one, not really the case, but still stupid nonetheless.